It's Wayne here, and I've asked Ricky Lambert to stay with me in the studio and discuss with me the topic of Easter and with our churches and the religious observance across our broadcast areas. Ricky, it's an interesting topic because the other day I saw that you posted on Flow News 24 a small church in southwestern Victoria, that beautiful building built back in the gold rush days of Ballarat, and it was being sold, and it just seemed to me, wow, what a sad situation that we're seeing so many of these little country churches closing.
Yeah, well, I drive past some when I'm driving around the regions as well, former churches that have either been mothballed or they've been converted into houses. They don't easily convert into housing, and the reality that is behind that is that the number of congregations is shrinking, the number of people in those congregations is shrinking, and it's a major challenge for the churches going forward because you've now got a priest or a pastor covering a very wide parish, and they can't get to everyone all the time. It's a real existential crisis for churches in the country areas.
And the COVID-19 situation, I don't think has helped it. I think churches have largely had even greater restrictions, and some of that was designed around the fact that they felt that there was more of an older demographic, and so therefore there might only be 50 allowed in a church, but another particular place like a shop could have an unlimited number of people when we were coming in and out of restrictions and so on. Has that had an impact, do you think, on the offering, therefore those monies that churches would then get for their upkeep, and then potentially for them to continue as older people didn't come back after the COVID-19 situation?
Absolutely. What we've seen with what I call pandemic politics, because ultimately those decisions are communicated and made by governments, is that they've made these decisions towards churches knowing that they do have an older demographic that attends them. And so they've been very scared that a COVID situation would go through those churches. But the other problem is that those churches aren't squeaking wheels that get oiled in politics like other squeaking wheels will. Take, for example, the hospitality industry. Hotels, etc., squealed when they wanted to be able to reopen again with good reason. But churches and congregations and peak bodies of churches generally just put up and shut up. They turn the other cheek, as the good book says. And so they haven't been vocal on needing to reopen. And so they've often been an afterthought at best when it comes to easing restrictions. So a lot of these churches haven't been able to open during the pandemic, and they're only just getting towards regular church life now, but they're finding the attendance is way down on what it used to be, and that's having a major impact.
And a little bit like the Anzac marches, that when you have a threatened situation, there was a lot of lobbying that went on to allow those marches to now go ahead, albeit with restricted numbers, and some are still scratching their heads wondering whether or not, if we've got complete unrestricted numbers at AFL games, then how is it that we can only have 5,000 people march in Melbourne? But this then goes to the next point. Is there a need for faith, if you like, to reinvent in some respects how it is done in the wider community? I mean, we talk about marriages and deaths, funerals, those things, celebrants, somebody to actually be there. Is there a need for a new group of people of faith to emerge in country regions and maybe again to reignite those regions so that they can again maybe worship or find a place of community with God, and at the same time be able to provide those helping services, those counselling services that a minister maybe at some time past had provided?
Well, I found this conversation when I did some consulting work with the Lutheran Church, the peak body based in Adelaide, and they are facing this challenge where they know at the top level, and they're very motivated people wanting to turn to technology and innovative ways of delivering what church looks like. But with that older demographic, older people aren't switching on and watching over a web broadcast of their church service. They're just not going. Because I think for them, it's change and tradition that they're missing, but also they like the community that comes with going to church, and they want to be able to see that community rather than just watching on a video. So I think the community that surrounds going to church still exists. They haven't ceased to communicate with those people they know in congregations. But that's what we need to see, is a creation of an opportunity for people to meet again in a community context.
It's a very interesting topic, and one that Clayton Bester has been exploring for our Easter programming. We're going to have interviews with Matt Prater and also with both the Anglican and a Catholic priest through the Easter programming here on The Flow next weekend. And I guess through technology, like the radio, Lisa and I will join you on our Sunday service, which is another way that people in regional areas where there isn't a church that can participate participate in some form of community in that respect. Ricky, good topic of discussion, one that I'm sure that we'll bring out a little bit more to next week with Easter.
Thanks, Wayne.